Stella Creasy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join with the members congratulating the member for Doncaster North and the member for Stratford for securing this incredibly important debate? There is a reason why thousands of people have taken to the streets of Britain tonight to express their concern about this ban, about what it says about our world, and particularly to ask what we're going to do about it. I don't disagree with a word, I'm sad that she's not in her place anymore, that the member for Broxtowe said about challenging sometimes agreeability of the debates that we have in this place. So in the spirit of what she'd said, let me bring some discord to our discussions, because I feel very strongly the central question facing us tonight is, what will people in positions of power do? We have seen what the leader of the free world in his first week in office has chosen to do with that power. We now have to ask ourselves, as elected representatives in the United Kingdom, what we will do by return. And I say to the member for Colchester, I do not disagree with him about respecting the fact that this man is an elected politician. But just because he won an election doesn't absolve him of responsibility for the consequences of his behaviour, and neither does it absolve us of the consequences of not acting. And I want to make 4 very quick points on that process, because we have to speak up. And we have to speak up not just because of the incredibly eloquent speech of my friend from Bradford about the impact on people in our communities, but because of what it also says about us as a society. Because actually, when we are as indifferent to hatred and intolerance, we are participants in it. This is about hatred. This is a ban on people on the basis of their religion or their nationality. There is no form of this ban that could be acceptable. There is no way of modifying it to make it plausible. It is simply hatred, and we should be clear about that. Because to not be clear about that says there are circumstances under which we might seek to ban people, restrict people on the basis of their religion or their nationality. It says that we would do the same, that we would allow there to be different classes of citizens in our communities, in our country, in our world. So we must be very clear that there is no acceptable form of this ban. There is only the need to challenge it. Now, how do we do that is the question. This is where I disagree with colleagues from the government benches. Absolutely, we must engage. Absolutely, we must speak up. That is why I read with despair that our own Prime Minister had the opportunity directly to look the President of the United States in the eye in a private meeting and say, look, this isn't right. This is going to be counterproductive. This will not achieve what you want, and it will divide our nation. And she clearly has not done that. That opportunity to engage was on the table directly, and she did not take it. And frankly, I think that damages all of us in the UK who defend the importance of our government in leading that. Now, the Minister may disagree with me, but I feel very strongly about this. I felt ashamed on Saturday when the Minister wants to intervene and confirm that actually the Prime Minister raised this with the President of the United States directly. I will happily take an intervention, because if he can't, then what I say stands. Just as on Saturday night, when the Home Office, the Foreign Office and the Number 10 refused to give a statement at all. It was damning on us as a nation when the world was calling out for leadership. Yes, I'll happily give way.
Thank my honourable friend for giving way. She's making an incredibly powerful speech. And was not the reason that this felt so abhorrent to so many of us, coming just a number of days after Holocaust Memorial Day, when we pledge to raise issue, when we see prejudice and hatred, that we will stand up in the face of it. And for our Prime Minister to fail to do so was deeply shaming upon our country.
I couldn't agree more. And one of the messages I want to send from this House tonight is that we do not recognise that as the kind of leadership that we want in our country. Because clearly something has to change, even if the Prime Minister did not know about that ban before she walked into the room with Donald Trump. So clearly, from that point onwards, something has to change. What cannot change is saying it's simply a matter for the United States. What cannot change is saying, well, if we can be sure that it's not going to affect our citizens, we won't worry about the implications of this ban elsewhere. That is not good enough. That is not the British way. Hear, hear. So the question for us is how best to express that and how best to engage. There is a world of difference between wanting to debate directly with President Trump whether he has done the right thing, not just of his own country, but of our world, and rolling out the red carpet and giving him the same treatment that we gave Nelson Mandela, or indeed when we laid the Queen Mother in state. There is a world of difference between wanting to debate with somebody and engage with them and indulge them. And I say to the government benches, for many of us, it looks like indulging and endorsing President Trump. If nothing changes now that we know of this ban, now that we know of his intention, of his deliberate actions to target Muslims in our world, if nothing changes, that says more about us as a nation than it does about him. And so the question for all of us is whether or not we use the power that we have as elected representatives of people in positions of authority to send that message, to join with our citizens who are not just on the streets tonight, who've not just signed that petition, but are saying, what has become of us as a world? People who recognise that diversity is a strength, people who recognise the words of indeed a former American President, Franklin Roosevelt, who argued that a nation does not have to be cruel to be tough. I'm proud of my country. I'm proud to be a patriot. I respect the rights of other countries, but that does not mean that I have to be silent when things go wrong. The silence of our government, the mitigation, the quibbling, the laziness with which people are approaching this issue, the tardiness with which the response doesn't speak to the best principles of being British. I'll happily give way. I was about to wind up, but I'll happily give way.
I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way. She's making very many pertinent points, but does she not believe that it's very good for British politics that we have a Prime Minister who thinks before she speaks, in contrast to spewing anything out on Twitter when it first comes into her mind? And that's a good thing for British politics and indeed the world.
As somebody who often goes onto Twitter, I don't know whether that was a recognition of that. Let me simply say this. There are some things that shouldn't take too much thought. Sometimes something is just wrong, and you need to say that it is wrong. You don't need to judge the angles. Of course, we need a trade deal with America, but we shouldn't be trading our values in order to secure it. Indifference to this kind of cruelty damages not just our nation and not just our nation's standing, but our world. It makes it harder for us to stand with those people in our communities tonight who are fearful of the kind of division that we're seeing through this ban. It makes it harder for us to advocate those values, to, yes, take on other countries that also ban people. It makes it harder for us to do our job. We are people in positions of power. We need to hear the voice of our communities who are saying this is not the world they want and act accordingly.
Order. There are, I think 4, 5, 6, 9 people wishing to speak. Can I just explain to the House that the front bench speakers should each have an opportunity to speak for 10 minutes or thereabouts, and they must be concluded by the Right Honourable Gentleman from the Treasury Bench by 8:59, so the Right Honourable Gentleman, the member for Doncaster North, has his right of reply at that point, and we have to work on that basis. If everybody speaks for 3 or 4 minutes, we're fine, but if people speak for longer than that, they're stopping other people speaking. Thank you. Liz Saville-Roberts.